What should we be aiming for in terms of immigrant assimilation? What's the ideal?
What's the ideal? Oh boy. You know, if you look at it in the full view, it's really a chance to have the best of all worlds. All worlds. I mean that literally, all worlds. I mean, I have like 4 points here I could probably lay out. One would be how much it could invigorate the American lifestyle, where we would get the best of everything. We're going to have a new infusion of family values, a new infusion of hard work and industriousness, a new infusion of ingenuity and creativity, invention, more artistic creativity, more players for the NBA. Did I mention that? Yeah.
Major League Baseball.
I'm intrigued by, we have Frenchmen playing in Texas and Germans playing in Texas, and even the big Chinaman, Yao Ming. I mean, it's all these great things that come to America, and they've assimilated into NBA, and we adopt lots of their practices as well. One thing that comes from immigrants also, I think, there's so many different contributions, is a new emphasis on academic scholarship. Some of our greatest thinkers and scholars are immigrants. So I think I'd like to see that embraced. All the good things that can come by the best from all the world. And then secondly, equally important in my goal here, if I had a goal, would be there would be equal participation and full access and inclusion as part of the definition and goal for assimilation. It wouldn't just be the things that we get in America from immigrants, but they themselves would have lowered barriers, no barriers to participation. And then along with that, I think the ideal goal, I think would have to be a freedom to continue, if they chose, with their own distinctive cultures. It's an option to be preserved and to be cherished. And I think that might be my third plank in the ideal goal. And then I think the final thing I would say is that if we did this and we adopted each other's best traits, what we would have in America is a recombination. And what we're going to see, it is a moving target. Our society is evolving so rapidly that we're going to be generating new cultures and new lifestyles in America. And that's why people want to come here, because the exciting new things are being created in America. And a lot of that, from Broadway plays down to the newest cuisine, a lot of that comes from the immigrants who are contributing, and it's happening here in America. I wouldn't call that a melting pot or a salad bowl, but I'd call it one heck of a good place to live.
Peggy Levitt or Richard Alba,
but there is some blending going on here. I think that in terms of the cultural creativity of the United States, that it very much comes. It's not so much the product of a single ethnic community as it is kind of elements coming together from the mainstream and ethnic communities and generating sort of new forms of cultural expression. And, I think America is, in some sense, the cultural leader of the world with its films and its electronic software and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But what should we think? Well, I agree with Dowell that the emphasis should be put on access to opportunities, that's really the crux of the matter. And I'm very wary of trying to, in some sense, have a normative notion that requires people to change their identities, to give up aspects of the things that they brought with them. They may well do those things. But I think that there is something fundamental here about American individualism. That's why people, in part, why people come here. That they think they can lead in the United States the life that they choose, and that's something that all of us see as kind of a rock solid aspect of our society. And I don't think we should try to take that away from immigrants, actually. So that's.
I think part of why this becomes such a difficult discussion is because we talk about rights, we don't talk about responsibilities. But we can't talk about immigrants' responsibilities without talking about native-born responsibilities as well. So you can't hold immigrants to a higher standard of political participation than you do native-born people. In the last presidential election, there was a lot of participation, but if you look at the participation rates before, immigrants aren't any less participatory than the native-born, and the turnout rates are often quite low. And I think this is very much a two-way street. The third point I want to make is that if we're interested in sort of bolstering American values, or what we all think is the core of what puts us together, when in my conversations with immigrants, yes, about religious life, yes, there are hot button issues like abortion or homosexuality that gets everybody riled up, but most people care much more about things like education and housing and safe streets and taking care of elderly and strong families, which are if that's not American values, then I don't know what American values are.